everyone. Welcome back to Champion the Passion, a weekly pro wrestling podcast where we inspire you to champion your passions and celebrate the joy in what you love. I'm your host. My name is Victoria Daisy, and today we're going to be recapping everything that happened last night on AEW Dynamite. But before we dive deeper, don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed. Follow me at It's Victoria Daisy across all social platforms, and follow Champion the Passion across all streaming platforms. But let's dive right in to the opening match. For the Trios Tag Team Championships, the Ops defending against the Hurt Syndicate. Now, this was such a great match. I mean, the storytelling was so well done and made this match all the more better, truly. I mean, I thought in terms of in-ring chemistry, everyone worked so well together and had such good spots. But towards the end, the Demand came out to distract MVP. To which Samoa Joe took advantage to pick up that W for him and the Ops and retain their Trios Tag Team Championships. Now, after the Hurt Syndicate chased the Demand all the way backstage, which left the Ops in the ring. To which Tony Schiavone came into the ring and asked them, well, why did they turn on Hangman? And Joe said that as long as Hangman strides the earth thinking he is the best champion, Joe will always be there to remind him who really is, obviously referring to himself. And this entire promo truly was the perfect heel promo, crapping on Hangman, crapping on the city of San Antonio, which is where they were last night, and just reminding everyone who the real champ is. And if you guys remember Samoa Joe back in WWE, I'm talking like 2017 when he was heel, chef's kiss. So good. And I saw glimpses of that last night, which I loved. But let's head into the first segment of the night with Darby Allin. He came out to say that he understands the risks that he took at Wrestle Dream this past weekend during his I Quit match against Jon Moxley. Just like he understood the risks he took when he climbed Mount Everest, what was that, a couple months ago at this point. And, people called him dumb and stupid for doing all of those things from Mount Everest to the match. But for him, that's just the fun of it. He said that he would die for this place, as in AEW. And all the scars on his body are the proof of it. Then he said that he understands that the Death Riders aren't just going to magically go away. So for every second that they're breathing, he will be right behind them. And obviously, once again, I always give you guys the cliff notes. So you guys, I please encourage you, if you haven't already, please watch the full promo because it was so good. It felt a little short, but it was very impactful and very beneficial to the storyline. And I love Darby. I think he is one of the pillars of AEW, one of the pieces that is the heart and soul of AEW. And so I thought it was such a great promo, and I'm so excited to see where he goes moving forward. After this, we had another match. It was a 4-way tag team match. So the first team we got was Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford versus Julia Hart and Sky Blue versus Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter versus Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale. Now this, guys, this was an incredible match. I mean, every single woman absolutely busted their butts to put the absolute best performance possible, and they definitely did. I mean, for example, Megan Bayne, wow. She is a force to be reckoned with, truly. I mean, she continues to surprise me with her strength and her power each and every time I see that woman in the ring. Also, somebody else is Queen Aminata. She is so underrated. I love watching her. I think that she always brings out something fun, something fresh, something that we don't necessarily see in the ring. And overall, I just didn't want the match to end. It was so good. But of course, there had to be a winner. And in the end, Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter took the W, and obviously we know that recently AEW announced the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championships, the first of its kind in their division, and to crown the inaugural champions, they are doing a tournament, which is so exciting. And the winner of this four-way tag match was going to have the opportunity to pick who they wanted to face in round one. So Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter decided to take on Julia Hart and Sky Blue in round one. We will be seeing that match next week along with the other round one matches that I am so excited for. I'm so excited to see who is going to win. Who's going to be the first ever champs? Now, we are going to talk more about the bracket that they announced later in the evening, later in this episode, but let's move right along and we'll come back to this. All right, the next segment we had was a Mercedes Moné Championship celebration. So Renee Paquette was out first to announce to the crowd that Mercedes, this past weekend at Wrestle Dream, broke Ultimo Dragon's record and set a new one of her own. Ultimo Dragon had the record of holding the most championships at once, which the number was 10. And by Mercedes winning the interim ROH Women's Television Championship from Mina Shirakawa at Wrestle Dream, that made her break the record by now holding 11. And then the night after, she traveled to, I believe it was an independent promotion, I could be wrong though, in Canada, and she won another championship. So right now she has 12 belts, Moné, Ultimo Moné, if you will, as she likes to call herself. And I really do think that by the end of this year, she could possibly be 14 belts Moné. And that's just talking AEW. I mean, she probably could go into other promotions too and snag those titles as well, which is really cool. But 12 guys ended up coming out down the entrance ramp, each holding one of her championships, and her music hit, but she was a no-show. And so I was like, oh my God, don't tell me that she literally just got attacked backstage or something like that. But instead, it was the Mercedes puppet that came out underneath the table. Because for context, the ring had balloons, a table with cake and champagne, and all these different things. And lo and behold, there was the Mercedes puppet, which we all know is Harley Cameron's. And eventually her music hit again, and she ended up coming out. But she came out super angry, okay? Super angry. She told the quote belt boys to go in the back, and she stormed into the ring. And you would think after a historic weekend she would be on cloud nine, but she was the complete opposite. So she told Renee to also get out of the ring so she could have a one-on-one with the puppet, which I thought was kind of funny. And then she told Harley Cameron how pathetic she is. She said that, you know, she was mad at Harley for being so desperate for attention when just a couple weeks ago she was trying to tag with her, and now she's ruining her moment. Then she slammed the puppet's face into the cake, followed by Harley Cameron coming out underneath the table to do the same. But then coming up from behind her was Chris Statlander, and she powerbombed Mercedes into the table with the cake on it. And oh my gosh, what a statement to make. I absolutely loved that. And I just have to say, this was such a great segment because right now they're really painting Chris Statlander to be the woman that Mercedes cannot beat or get through. They have made such an emphasis on the fact that Chris Statlander is not the same woman that Mercedes faced last year at Full Gear, and that this time it's going to be a completely different story. Although I feel that that is what's going to propel Mercedes to be able to win her 13th championship at Full Gear. And I just thought it was a great way to continue heating up their rivalry and a great way to build excitement for Full Gear. And the match actually was made official because I know we talked about it last week when the challenge was originally issued, but Chris Statlander officially accepted. So we are officially getting Chris Statlander defending her AEW Women's Championship against Mercedes Moné. So that's going to be a really good match. Can't wait for that in November. But let's talk about the present. The next match we had was Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly. Now, this was a really good match, but of course, it wouldn't be a Moxley match without the Death Riders getting involved with some shenanigans, right? So we didn't get much of the match before this started happening. So, you know, they came out, but then Kyle O'Reilly had his backup locked and loaded in the back, ready to go. And so they came out, and the match ended obviously due to disqualification, but all hell broke loose, truly. It was absolutely insane. And then it turned into a 6-man tag match. So we had the Death Riders versus Roderick Strong, Orange Cassidy, and Mark Briscoe. This was Of course, a really fun match. How do you have all those people in it not be electric? I mean, there were so many crazy spots and move sequences and everything that just made it all that it was. But in the end, Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Roderick Strong took the W. But of course, the Death Riders are the Death Riders. And it's not me hating. You guys know I love the Death Riders. But Pac came out to do further damage. But Ishii was ready to fight back. And unfortunately for O'Reilly's backup, they were outnumbered by the Death Riders, and that's kind of how the segment ended. Just with them on top. So next we had a Kyle Fletcher segment. So Kyle came out to praise himself for being the greatest TNT champion, and he just kept saying it over and over. And then Mark Briscoe came out. Yes, he came out again. He was just out there 5 minutes prior, but it's okay. We stand Mark Briscoe. Mark came out to basically shut him up and teach him a lesson about talking less. He said that he wants one more shot at the TNT championship. So Kyle consulted in Don Callis, to which Don Callis replied and said, no. He talked about Mark Briscoe's family and how his family will never be what the Don Callis family is, and that's something he will never be able to stay or never be able to go to. And so he said no. He's just never going to have it and never will. I will say, though, that the promos and the segments last night felt very short because that's all we've got. That's all we got from it. I don't know what the real point of all this was. I mean, maybe we will end up getting that match at Full Gear again. I don't really know, but let's talk about something that is very exciting. The Women's World Tag Team Championships tournament bracket, okay? So I already mentioned earlier that we were going to talk about this, and this is the part in the show where they announced it, and I'm super excited about it. So in round one, this round one starts next week. The first matchup we have is Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter versus the Sisters of Sin, which is Julia Hart and Sky Blue. The next matchup is Mercedes Moné and Athena versus Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron. Matchup number 3 is Alex Windsor and Riho versus Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. And the final matchup for round 1 is Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford versus Ty J. Now, that's obviously all we know because the matches need to happen, but I'm going to share my predictions for who I think is going to make it all the way to the end and win the gold. So my semifinals predictions are going to be Sisters of Sin versus Mercedes Moné and Athena, which means that Sisters of Sin would beat Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter, which, because they just won the 4-way, I could see the argument to have Queen and Jamie win, but I'm not too sure. I still think Sisters of Sin are going to beat them. And then Mercedes and Athena would beat Willow and Harley. And then the second matchup in semifinals that I think is going to happen is Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa versus Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, which means that Toni and Mina would be beating Alex Windsor and Riho, and Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford would be beating Ty J. Now, I do have predictions for the finals, which would be Mercedes Moné and Athena versus Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa. That means that Mercedes and Athena would be beating Sisters of Sin, and Toni and Mina would be beating Megan and Penelope. Now, the reason I say all of this is solely for storyline purposes. I think that, they're really trying to load up Mercedes with as many titles as possible, and I think that they would want her going into Full Gear as tag team champion with Athena. I think the story is there with Athena, and I think the story could even be there more if Mercedes and Athena win. I think if Mercedes got to pin Toni Storm, that would be absolute cinema, and something that, even though it's not a one-on-one match, she would still get the satisfaction of getting to pin Toni, since obviously we know at AEW All In she wasn't able to do that. And so I think that this would be a really great opportunity to do so. And I'm super excited to see who ends up actually winning the gold, because while I think this prediction sheet makes the most sense in my brain, it could be completely different. So I'm really curious to see who ends up taking the inaugural piece of gold. But let's head into the main event for the AEW Unified Championships, Kazuchika Okada versus Bandito. This was such a good match. I mean, guys, the matchup of these two was fire. But watching them go crazy in that ring, doing the crazy moves, the spots, everything that makes them was the cherry on top. The storytelling here was so good, and I just loved everything about it. But in the end, Kazuchika Okada did retain his title, and after the match, the Don Callis family, the entirety of it, came out to the ring to celebrate with Kazuchika Okada for retaining his title. But the one person that wasn't there was Konosuke Takeshita. Yeah. I mean, not really a shocker considering the beef, the underlining beef they've been having. But then his music hit and he wanted to have the moment to himself. Obviously, for those who don't know, he recently won the IWGP championship, and so he came out wanting the eyes all on that. He wanted to remind Okada, "Hey, I'm champion too." And I just have to say, I love the story going on between Takeshita and Okada. I think it's so good. And I cannot wait for the day they have their match. I think that we all know it's coming. The day they have their match is going to be one of the greatest days ever. Whether it's at Full Gear, World's End, I don't care. I need it at some point. Them tagging together just doesn't work. Them being in the same family just doesn't work. It's funny. I love it. But I'm just waiting for that match. I cannot wait. But that's how they went off the air. And I thought it was a great way to get us hype, a great way to leave us at the edge of our seats until next week's Dynamite. And I loved it. So let's head into my overall thoughts. Overall, I thought it was a really, really good show. My match of the night was definitely the women's four-way tag team match. It was so entertaining and filled with OMG moments, truly. My segment of the night was the Darby Allin promo. I thoroughly enjoyed the impactful promo he cut, and I just felt like it really advanced his storyline nicely. Overall, I rate the show about a 7 out of 10. And don't forget to come back tomorrow for another bonus episode where we will be previewing and predicting the entire card for NXT Halloween Havoc happening this Saturday. It's going to be such a good show, and I can't wait to talk about it all with you guys tomorrow. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this episode of Champion the Passion. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed. Follow me at It's Victoria Daisy across all social platforms, and follow Champion the Passion across all streaming platforms. Don't forget to champion your passions and celebrate the joy of what you love, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.